Welcome to the Working Mama podcast, a show that provides real-world tips, tricks, and advice to all working mamas on how they can have a career, family, and hopefully one day break the glass ceiling. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Working Mama podcast. This week, I speak with Leslie Carvitto, a personal brand and lifestyle photographer that activates and amplifies women's magic. She provides soulful and authentic imagery for creatively fueled brands and bold women in business, and is on a mission to show the world the depth of women's creativity and spirit. Born and raised in California, Leslie has lived in Hawaii, Seattle, and Melbourne, and now calls the beautiful Surf Coast home. She has become a mama in 2022 and is navigating the juggle of being a business owner and raising a tiny human. This is an episode of pretty raw, and Leslie certainly shares a lot of her personal experiences, her challenges, and also how she's come out the other end, certainly after the fourth trimester. It's a really raw account of a working mum journey. So hope you enjoy the episode. This episode is brought to you by the Working Mama Village, a membership to support working mums with training, resources, empowerment, and support to help you thrive in both being able to have a career and being a mum. So check it out today, and there's also going to be some specials coming up for my birthday month in June. So let's get into it. Welcome, Leslie. Welcome to the Working Mama podcast. How's your day going so far?
Day has been going incredible, thanks. As we were just chatting about summer and how it arrived a little bit late, it is fully here now, and I live on the Surf Coast on Wadawurrung country outside of Melbourne, and the day has just been incredible. Lots of sunshine, got an ocean dip in. It's Friday, so feeling good.
Yes, we're recording this at the relatively start of February, and as we said, Melbourne, the weather can be up and down. Last week it was snowing. This week it's a nice, balmy 30 degrees. So, it's never dull. So with your accent, it sounds like you've had a bit of a journey to get where you are now. So Leslie, how would you best describe yourself and what's been your career journey to date?
Yeah, the best describing yourself, it's such an interesting question because it really depends on the day or even in the moment. But I guess if I had to give a general overview of how I might describe myself, I would say I'm a multi-passionate creative. I'm a mom, a wife, a sister, a daughter, a community builder, a photographer. That's my business. So I'm a business owner. And overall, just a fun-loving, curious human.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So many different, but that's also all of us. We have so many different elements to us, and our life is not just a mum as part, we've all got a bigger picture of that. So you said you're a business owner. So what's been your career journey so far?
It has been very nonlinear. So I have held a variety of jobs in a variety of industries. I worked in hospitality for a long time. I did public relations, which is what I studied at university. I've been in digital marketing. I was a technical recruiter. So did a lot of different things before starting my own business. My last corporate role was as an account manager at a design agency. And I got to this point where I was tired of suppressing the feelings and like the little voice that said there's more for you. Like this is okay, or even sometimes it was good, but it didn't feel like it. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, I'm very multi-passionate. I had so many things that I wanted to try, and working 40 plus hours a week doesn't give you much time or space for testing out different paths. So I quit my job with the intention of giving myself a year just to start exploring other options. And I was able to use a lot of the skills I picked up in corporate world to start freelancing. And I ended up freelancing and working for a lot of female business owners. So having kind of a bit of a Jill of all trades, I was able to learn a lot of things along the way, but also just pop in skills where they were needed for these women in business. So some days that meant copywriting, writing social media posts or scheduling, writing newsletters, blog posts, setting up CRMs. It really could have been anything that they needed. I was just there to do it all, do all the things they didn't want to do essentially, or didn't have time to do. And photography was always something that I had really enjoyed as a hobby, and I felt the pull to take it more seriously during that year where I was kind of trying to figure out what was next. It was the one thing that I just kept coming back to. So I ended up freelancing and working for two other female photographers, which was really great because I was able to assist with them and really just get a look at what the life of a photographer could be or what it could look like. And they became my mentors. And over time, that really solidified that photography was the path that I wanted to take. So slowly but surely, I transitioned to letting go of some of those freelance clients, doing some of that kind of virtual assistant marketing tasks and just building up more of the photography. And now it's full-time photography.
That is so good in that you've had this linear career, but so many people don't actually have linear careers. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
who does these days, but it's so, I think, actually inspiring that you've really followed your passion and really what you want to do and what lights you up and that makes you happy. And so, with that, how's it gone of then? So, did you have your business before you became a mum or vice versa?
Yeah, so I had the business before I became a mom. I started freelancing in 2017, and I would say the photography side of things really picked up actually when I moved from the States over to Melbourne. So, and actually, I would say it even really picked up when I moved to the Surf Coast. So that was 3 years ago, like pretty much at the beginning of the pandemic. But yeah, so I have been doing working for myself and running a business pre motherhood. I just had my first babe almost 11 months ago now. So yeah, he's almost a year old, which is mind blowing.
Yeah, it's my son's almost two. Oh, my son's actually two on the weekend, and I can't believe it's been 2 years. As they say, the
Mm,
days are long, but definitely the years are short. That's for sure.
yeah.
And so, how have you gone of managing that transition from business owner into being a mum and managing that all? Because it can be, it's already stressful enough having your own business and then having a son. So, did you take maternity leave, managing your clients as well? So how have you managed and navigated that process?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's a nice one to reflect on too. So I because my husband and I moved here on visas, we are not really like mat leave is not given to us. It's not a thing for us because we're not citizens and we're not permanent residents. And so thankfully, my husband is with an international company that has a pretty generous paternal leave, which is great. And I also just decided that for my business and for my sanity and everything that I would need to not place expectations on myself in terms of when I would return. So that was a question that kind of was coming up towards the end as I was winding down and not taking any more shoots and just letting people know that I would be taking some time off and I wouldn't be on social media and I just wouldn't be around basically. I really wanted to give myself the time and space to enjoy that bubble. So everyone was like, well, when are you coming back? Like, when can we book a shoot? When do you think work's going to be picking back up? And I was like, to be honest, I don't know. And I also want to just say that I understand that is a huge, huge privilege is being able to say, I don't know when I'm going to come back to work. I know not everybody has that opportunity or that privilege. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. But I just knew that I didn't want to place any sort of expectation or pressure on getting back to work at a certain time because I had no idea what I was in for. Like, yeah, I just really had no idea. I didn't know how I would be feeling physically, mentally, spiritually. I didn't know what kind of personality my baby would have. Like, maybe they would need to be on me 24/7. Maybe they'd be colicky, like there were just so many ifs that I decided to say, I'm not coming back until it feels right, it feels ready. And so that's kind of how I navigated in terms of taking time off and when I felt ready to move back into just very slowly dipping my feet back into work stuff.
And so how did you know that point that when you felt ready?
I think because I had really kept the like pretty much the fourth trimester was just a real solid space of rest for me. I had an incredible birth team that really encouraged that. So my midwife, my doula, my husband, my mom came out. She actually landed the day I went into labor,
Oh,
which
wow.
was not the plan. My son came at 42 and 5. So he was quite quote unquote late in terms of my estimated due date. But yeah, the idea was that I would have him and then we'd have a couple of weeks to kind of situate ourselves and get into a flow, maybe get into a flow. And then my mom would come out and help. And the days just kept ticking. And he was apparently very comfortable, didn't see the need to come out. So yeah, she landed and got to see me pregnant for a few hours. And then I went into labor.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. So again, that fourth trimester was very much just like rest, be in the bubble, didn't have a ton of visitors and outside of our family, had a meal train going. So gosh, I recommend that to any pregnant person. I wish the meal train was still a thing. I still want it to be a thing, but just had a lot of support in those first few months. And I think that not having the pressure again or the expectations, I was just able to really rest and receive, which receiving for me has always been a bit of like, it's been a challenge for me to receive.
Yes. I don't think it
um,
comes naturally.
yeah, it was tough, but it also at the same time felt really good. And I think maybe it was the first time in my life I actually really surrendered into receiving. So I think by the time I was getting back into work, I just felt it was just that intuitive nudge, of like you don't need to go full force in business right now, but I love my job so much and I find so much purpose in it that it's just actually hard to stay away from it for too long. It just brings me a lot of joy. I think for better or for worse, I do find a sense of identity in it. And so, with motherhood and the shift of identity and the who am I, what's going on, photography and getting back into work actually became somewhat of an anchor for me to go back to something that I feel really good doing. I feel like I'm good at. It kind of just transported me back into myself a bit. Whereas, as a new mom, there's a bit of, well, there's a lot of learning and unlearning and figuring things out as you go along. Every time I stepped back into work and had my camera, I felt not just a sense of purpose, but like, oh, here I am.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here nodding, going, yes. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing how so many times you feel like, oh, that pull of like, I have to go back to work. But I love the approach that you knew when you were ready. And then, but also then that sense of identity, because we all work for various reasons. And it's, obviously the way the interest rates are at the moment. Yes, money is one thing, but certainly what we do is what you say. It's all about our identity. And also it helps round us out as a person. So I
Mm.
love that. It's certainly, there's so many different elements to that. So just quickly as well, how long did you have off on for leave after your child before you went back to shooting again?
Well, my first shoot was actually when he was 6 weeks old. So there's kind of a backstory to this. I had a contract position with our local council, and they had some money come in, and they had this really cool creative program right before I was about to go on mat leave, essentially. They said, hey, we know you're having a baby, but is this something you'd want to be involved in? You don't have to do it right now, but we just need to know if you want in. And it was this really cool program that allowed the businesses in our area to essentially hire you as a creative and the council would pay for it. So it was a win-win for the creatives. It was a win-win for all the businesses. And I was like, yes, sign me up. So I ended up booking 22 shoots through this council program. But the
Wow.
beauty of it was there was no timeline, essentially. I didn't need to do it in a certain amount of time. But one of the people that hired me was a local business, two beautiful women that run a tea company out here on the coast. And I've worked with them before. And so they were like, no rush, but whenever you feel ready. My in-laws were in town, so we had extra help, and I was feeling quite energetic and I was like, let's do it. Like let's just do the shoot. So I guess technically I took 6 full weeks off, but getting back into work for me, photography and all that is very, it's not going back to corporate where I'm at a desk from 8 to 5. So the flexibility of it is great for a new mom. So yeah, I kind of just slowly started booking things in when I was feeling extra energetic, and the shoots were only 45 minutes to an hour. So it was a nice quick, like,
That really was able to work around, sleep and
yeah,
things like that. Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome. So, oh, how good. But it's good that those opportunities came up and you were, I guess, probably listening to your own self about what worked, what wasn't working. You had the support around you and really listening to yourself, as you said, when you felt energetic and the like. So it's so good that, yeah, you're managing that, that fourth trimester, but also with what also makes you happy
Mm,
during that shift as well. So through that, as what you said, you wanted to take time to see how things went as you had your son. What surprised you the most at the moment about motherhood, but then also combining having a career in your own business with being a mum?
yeah. There's a lot of surprising things about motherhood. I think because my husband and I waited a little bit later in life to have kids, and also a lot of our friends didn't start having kids until their 30s, so we weren't really around them a ton. So I almost had like not many expectations. I went into it pretty just like, okay, we'll see what happens. Like we will see what we get. We'll see how the experience or what experience we get from all this. But I think one of the most surprising things about motherhood is the conflicting or like complicated feelings that can rise and shift, not just like every day, but almost every minute. So some days I feel just so present and so connected to my son, and I feel just blissful and privileged that I get to be at home with him and I get to witness all of the ways that he's growing up. And again, I know that not everyone has that choice to stay home for as long as they want. And so I take that, so I guess I just hold that very preciously. And so some days I just feel so content, I guess, with doing the mom thing and just raising a little human. And then some days I'm like, can you please have 2 4-hour naps so I can just work and meet with my friends without interruptions and have quiet time with my husband and surf or do all the things that I used to do before I had a baby.
Yeah.
So it's like some days I just can't imagine my world without him, and other days I just want to step back in time and relive all my days as a maiden. And I was also surprised that, like, I think the word relentless gets used a lot in parenting, but now I really feel how there is no pause button. There's just no pause. It's just there's always, if it's not something to do, then it's something to think about. So
Yeah.
there's like the physical load, there's the mental load, there's always something going on. Even when he's sleeping, it's like, should I clean the house or should I do work?
Yeah, there's always something, and it is that constraint. But even we were the
Yeah.
same the other night. My kids actually had their first sleepover at their grandparents for a very, very long time. And we woke up and it was like, this is bizarre. Like, we slept in a little bit, even though we had to work. We're both working from home, so we could sleep in a little bit later rather than getting woken at the crack of dawn by a little
Yeah.
human wanting a cuddle and stuff. But it was bizarre. Sometimes you're like, oh, it'd be nice to be able to sleep in. And then you're like, but when they're not there, the house is remarkably quiet. It was weird.
Yeah.
So
You're like, what
yeah.
do I do with this free time? It's almost
Yeah.
like you forget what you used to do. And so, yeah, I think just the kind of the relentlessness of it, and also how much mess a like almost 1 year old can make.
Oh
It,
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, how? Like, I pretty much stopped trying to keep things clean because I want to spend my time in other ways. And so I'm just like, well, it's just going to be a mess for now because I'd rather go do this. And so I've had to let go of many, many things.
Oh, I've been
Just
trying to
go with
clean
the
up a
flow.
Duplo train set for weeks and I put it away and then it comes out. I put it away
Yeah.
and then the other way I'm like, okay, fine. They'll get packed
Yeah.
up for when the cleaners arrive, but otherwise, fine. You
Who
boys win. You
cares?
can have
Yep.
it. Like
Pick your battles.
I love how people say, they come to see you. They don't come to see how sparkling clean your floors are or something like that. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So just on the flip side of that, so what surprised you? Have you noticed any key challenges that you've experienced, particularly being a working mum and also having your own business? And how have you overcome these? If you've
Yeah.
overcome them. Not all
Yeah, I
challenges
was about to
necessarily
say,
can be overcome.
I do think it's something that I'm every day is just working on it. a little bit more. So some of the challenges speaking up about my needs and asking for help have been two huge ones. So I've really had to break down my own narratives and my own stories that I think I've really been telling myself my entire life that, they're so ingrained, I barely even realized that they were there. But, for example, I've always identified as a really independent and self-sufficient woman. I can do things on my own. And I've also had a fear of appearing needy or feeling like a burden to somebody. And so having my son really shined a light on my resistance to ask for help and to communicate when I actually needed more help. So again, still working on both of these, taking small steps every day. But, like for instance, just asking friends if they can drop by and watch him for an hour so I can go to an appointment or if I have a shoot. And sometimes I'll even start the conversation by saying, hey, I know you said you're happy to help. It still makes me uncomfortable to ask you, but would you be willing to do this? And I think just saying that out loud helps ease the tension really in my own body because I'm just being honest about the fact that it's hard for me to do this thing,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I'm
it's
gonna do it anyways.
yeah. And look, it's one of those things. I'm exactly the same of that. I was so proud, particularly with my first son. Yeah, I'm all proud. I can do everything. And then one of my friends at Mother's Group, one of the first things she actually said when they were going around the circle was actually about asking and accepting help. And that when you open yourself up for help, it invites people, you open that door so it invites people to continue asking and offering help. But if you close that
Yes.
door, no, and you say, no, I don't need any help, no one's actually going to offer. So you've just essentially closed that door on that opportunity.
Mm, yeah,
And
that's so good.
it's really like almost 5 years later, this comment still rings true. And I still see this person and I'm like, Kate, this is like, but it's so true. I think as you know, that particularly this day and age, we think that, we're strong, independent women. We shouldn't be out needing to ask for help. But, even back in the day, they ran villages that, and culturally, other cultures from Western society, they, like, as you said, they've got people that are constantly around them offering help. But it seems to be with Western culture, no, don't ask for help. It's almost like a shame, but really it's such a strength to ask for help, not a
Yeah.
weakness. And we really need to be doing it more. And I love how you say, look, it's uncomfortable for me, but can you help? Because it's
Yeah.
so true. It's so true as what you said. You want to appear independent, but asking for help is not such a bad thing.
Yeah, it's really not. And I think one of the best things that my friends have done for me is even if they can't help, or like actually specifically if they can't help that day, they'll just say, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm actually not able to, but please keep asking me for help. Like I've had multiple people text me back, please keep asking me. And that just, it's just like I breathe out. I'm like, "Ah, okay, it's almost like confirming like you're not a burden. People want to help you. And I think if I approached it more from that place of just reminding myself people want to help. Like helping others feels good. I know I really love it when people ask me for help because I want to be there for my community. I want to be there for my friends. And if I can offer that to someone, like that feels really good. So let's not rob other people of the gift of helping and giving.
Yeah.
So yeah, asking for help, definitely number one. And then speaking my needs and like processing my feelings on a day-to-day basis. The example of this is I remember in the early days when my husband was still on his parental leave, he would ask if it was okay for him to go for a run or go on a surf. And he's one of those types that like daily exercise is crucial for his mental health. And so, of course, there's a huge part of me that is like, yes, please go do the thing. I need you to be like at your best so you can help take care of me and Westy. So, like, yes, please go do that. But then there was another part of me sometimes where I would just be like, no, it's not okay. Like I actually need you to be home with me. Like even if he's asleep and I don't need an extra set of hands or something, it's just like I needed the company, I needed the connection, I needed intentional time with him. And I just needed his physical presence in the moment. And so sometimes I would say, yes, go, even though in the back of my mind I was like, no, don't go. Like read between the lines.
Yeah.
And then he would come back and I would just say, oh, look, sorry. I know I told you it was okay, but actually, I really wanted you to stay here. And so now when he asks about leaving to go do something, he'll ask me two times. So he'll say, hey, is it okay if I go for a surf? And if I'm like, yeah, sure, go. He'll be like, are you just saying that? Or are you really okay with me leaving? And so it's been a good practice for me to just come back and I guess think a little bit deeper before I say something and think, is this really okay? Is this what I need right now? Do I need him to go and take care of himself, or do I need him to stay here and help take care of Westy or take care of me or whatever it is?
Yeah, it's so true. We shouldn't necessarily hide behind those rocks, but actually really speak up. So,
Mm,
and you've talked about how you really enjoyed work and motherhood, and how have you navigated then that identity shift, which we can also then liken to the term matrescence, which I discovered about 18 months ago, and I love
yeah.
the term because it really validates us as mothers and this shift that we go through. How you spoke about this a little bit earlier. How have you navigated and also probably recognized in yourself that shift? Because you've really, you've had an exciting career so far, successful photographer, and then going into then navigating life as a business owner and photographer into being a mum. So and really because there's different identities that come with that, and as you said, the feelings and emotions. What's the experience been like for you, and how have you worked through it?
I think I've had to just keep reminding myself that life is all about seasons. So pre-baby, I think I just wanted to be in summer season all the time. I just wanted to be productive, working, creating, making new offers, doing all the shoots. I really wasn't interested in syncing with the seasons of knowing that, like, yes, summer is wonderful, but after summer comes autumn and it's time to slow down and rest a little bit. And then winter is a time to really rest and to think about what you want to plant next. And moving through those seasons and being a little bit more, I guess, cyclical
Yeah.
has helped just remind me that I don't need to do everything right now, which is very hard for me to do. If I have an idea pop into my head, I want to execute like right away. I just get so excited. I'm like, great, let's do it now. But it might not be the right time. And especially with, me being pretty early in my motherhood journey, I just keep thinking like this isn't really the season for my business to be thriving and flourishing. I guess in a sense it could be if I wanted it to, but really what I want is to be present for this early stage of motherhood and to just soak in all of the moments that I know that I'm never going to be able to return to. Well, I take a lot of photos, so I can return to it via, my camera, my photos. But yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, and I think this is something parents say all the time about the days are the days are long, but the years are short. And I feel that already. It's only been a year and it just went by so fast. And even when things feel utterly mundane, like I'm just like, I can't believe we're doing this over and over again all day, every day. I I think just motherhood really highlights that all we have is the present moment. And so right now my focus is really on my son and on, I think, being really compassionate and kind to myself through this transition that I think culturally is not, not very supported or looked at as a very short-term thing. Like, okay, you had a baby and then a couple months, you no longer have a newborn, so now you're fine. And I have not found that to be the case. I find every new stage brings new learnings and more difficult times, and then times of blissful ease. And yeah, there's just, we need to find a better term for or a better word for journey,
Yeah.
the motherhood journey, because it just is so much. And so, yeah, I guess just navigating it with compassion, following intuition, and knowing that life is all about seasons. And so just to try and appreciate the season that I'm in now, because it's not always going to be this season. We'll shift into something new. And then, you know, the focus might go back to my business and we'll be in a completely new season.
Yeah, and such a good reminder that, yeah, we don't need to yeah, always be in summer. We don't always need to be doing, pressing the foot on the accelerator at 100 miles an hour and actually listening to and observing what's going on. And yeah, as I said, like my son's almost 2 and I can't believe how much like he's talking and opinionated. And like we ask him, how old are you turning? And he says 4. And he pretty much in some ways, I'm sure he like in his own head, he thinks he is, but it's amazing how much it is, but also like even in your own identity as a mum, shifts and changes sometimes from a day-to-day it's week to week, month to month. It is such a, it's a hard because it's not ever ending. It's as I was chatting with some friends on WhatsApp last night, someone said, about birthing and stuff. And we're like, whoa, parenting's not about that day of birthing. It's the next 18 plus years. So we all had a bit of a laugh.
Yeah. And isn't it funny? There's so much, it's almost kind of like I find it similar to when you're getting married. There's so much energy and excitement and planning about the wedding, but then not so much about the rest of your life with this person, like in this partnership. And it does feel the same way with motherhood. There's this, education and a lot of anticipation about the birth, but it's like that is one very small,
Yes.
it's a big one, but it is also a small experience in the bigger picture of raising a human. It's like that part is actually goes by pretty quick. And then now you have the responsibility of raising a kind, compassionate human.
Yeah, there was during the parenting classes that I went to at hospital, which were very brief, there was nothing to say, you're going to go through this identity shift. This is what matrescence is. This is how you are going to, it's just like, right, this is either going to be this birth and blah, blah, blah. And like, I wasn't prepared in that sense of, wow, and this is who you are. You're no longer Karina. You're such and such as mom. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, who is this? And who am I? And then that shift goes back. And then when you start back into work, you're like, oh my goodness, who am I again? And you check your phone and childcare changes the game. It's amazing how, this identity shift and there's different emotions and things that come with it. So as you said, it's a hard thing. We, rather than having the term journey, but something, in that sense.
Well, it is nice. Like you mentioned, matrescence, just having more language now around all of the shifts and all of the identity changes and all, like it's really great that more of that is, I think, it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. Like more people are starting to find the term or understand what it means or join, mother circles. I know there's a gal out here on the Surf Coast that I just went to one of her mother circles, and that literally was the topic, was matrescence. And so just being in a space with, I think it was maybe 10 other moms who had kids of all ages. And that was actually, I guess, somewhat surprising to me. There was parents who had, like a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old. And to see that, the journey doesn't end. So there's so many things that come up at different times, at different stages, at different ages. And we never stop needing support.
No. And both as kids, just as much as our kids need support, we also need support to navigate that. So how is your perceptions and priorities changed since becoming a mum? And has as you said earlier, your business focus has changed. So how are also you navigating that as a working mum now?
Well, it's pretty crazy. I'm sure as any parent will know that priorities just completely shift overnight once your baby comes out of your body. My husband and I we had a lot of really deep intentional talks before he arrived, and we were really trying to set a solid foundation and make sure, we were doing check-ins with one another and that like we were still making time for each other and all of this stuff. And then I had my son, and basically all of my energy went from like outside world stuff to me and him. And it was just all about caring and nurturing for like myself so that I could care and nurture for my son. And I remember just being like, it was like him, he's the top, he's the priority, me underneath him. And then it was like my husband and our relationship. And that was something I guess I didn't anticipate and was a bit, it was a challenge. Again, we don't talk that much about what happens after the baby arrives. There's stuff about like the birth and calm birth and all this stuff. And how do you navigate that? And then it's like, how do you navigate your relationships after you've had a baby? Not just your relationships with like your partner or your family but yeah, your relationship with yourself too.
Mm.
So yeah, priorities obviously changed way overnight. And I think also just my perception of motherhood. Like one thing that really stood out post birth for me was recognizing that I didn't do that much for like my sister or for friends who had had babies before me. I just didn't understand how life-changing it was and how much support is needed. And I so wish that I would have brought them more meals or held their baby so that they could shower or take them for a walk so they could nap or do the dishes and laundry. There's just so much going on behind the scenes that doesn't stop after, the fourth trimester or whatever. And I think help seems to kind of drop off a bit because people think, oh, well, they're not in the newborn phase anymore. Like they don't really need it. But almost you need it more because usually partners go back to work and like the meal train ends and all of a sudden you're kind of left on your own in a
Yeah.
sense. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing that has stood out for me. But in terms of work, it's been on some days it feels really difficult and on other days it doesn't. So some days I'll feel like all I really want to do is get back to work and to be in that summer period and be in that kind of fiery energy where I just get to create and create with no distraction, with no interruptions, just get into a flow again. Some days I really, really want that.
Yeah.
And some days I don't feel the pull as much. Some days I'm really okay with being kind of consumed with motherhood. So I'm kind of in that space right now of figuring out, okay, what does next year look like? I feel like because he's turning 1 and I've been able to manage things with kind of, calling in a babysitter every once in a while or working during nap time, or when my husband has a flexible schedule, he can be home or just doing shoots on the weekend. I'm kind of hitting that point where that doesn't work anymore.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, okay, well, I think this stage is coming to an end. There's a bit of tension around it now. So we need to figure out what's going to work for us moving forward because I am starting to feel a little bit more of like that draw to get back to work, to have a bit of a schedule. God, I miss a schedule.
Yeah.
Like my schedule, not Weston's schedule, my son's schedule, but like mine, like something that is for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, now it's all about looking into the future and thinking, what do our days look like now so that I can get a bit more back into the groove and not feel like my mind is in a couple different places at once, which is just nothing really gets done well when your brain is in too many places.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all scatterbrain and stuff like that. No, completely,
Mm,
completely relate to that. I always said I can have about 3 balls, and after that, I don't. Everything else just gets a bit crazy. And so,
yeah. And I also,
yeah,
oh,
don't
I was
go.
just going to say, I'm thinking about the juggling the balls analogy, and I think about the more you juggle, the less space there is for something really incredible to drop in. So almost, even though sometimes leaving space for me feels really uncomfortable, and I think like, oh, is the work going to come? Or like if I turn down something because it's not quite right or it's not in alignment, but I'm thinking, oh, should I have taken that job? And it's like, don't fill with too many balls because then when the right ball does drop, you are going to be too busy or too burnt out or too scatterbrained to even recognize it and take it. So there is a little bit of, I guess, trust there of just not juggling too many balls and so that you're open for that big thing to drop in that you're maybe that's your goal or you're calling in or whatever it is.
I think it's a really good reminder to, yeah, because if you're juggling and you're not looking out, and rather than you're always looking inward, you're not going to recognize and also see when those opportunities come about. So it's, yeah, I think a really good way to make sure there's always an extra ball that you could possibly bring into that juggling act, certainly as a
Yeah.
working mum. So And just on that, what would be your advice to your younger self to being a working mum? Is it the juggling to make sure you've always got another ball that you could potentially carry?
Hmm. I think I would probably, advice I'd give myself is that there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think if you look outside, you will find a lot of advice or a lot of just opinions, I guess, on ways to do it. But I think it's all about finding the way that works best for you and your family and realizing that that will shift over time. Nothing is ever going to be right forever. It's always going to be navigating the changes in your family dynamic and how you're feeling and what's your priority at the moment. And so, yeah, I think just remembering that there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's just you figuring out what works best. And also something that I always come back to, this phrase, commit to your experience, not your expectations.
Oh, I
A yoga,
love that.
oh yeah, a yoga teacher said this during class when I was in Bali. And I don't even know what pose we were in, but I looked up at him and I was just like, oh my God, like, yes. Like I just felt that mantra in my bones. And so I feel like it applies to motherhood.
I love
Um,
it. That's awesome.
yeah, it's just my reminder that if I can empty myself of assumptions and expectations and I can just be in the present moment, like I can see things with more clarity rather than getting stuck in what I thought should happen or what I want to happen or what I expected to happen. I can just meet each moment as it is and deal with it as it arises rather than being so attached and so stuck in my ideas or the way that I think it should be or even that I want it to be, which goes back to the priorities. It's like it used to be all about me and it's not all about me anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I love that quote. I've written it down. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing. Now,
Mm.
just quickly, Leslie, how do you fill your cup?
Anything outdoors and in nature. So trail walks or trail running, surfing, swimming, watching the sunrise, just being outside, being away from technology, leaving my phone at home, and also a really good massage. I love a good massage.
Oh, how good are they? Just to get even those
Yeah.
knots out. So, yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for today's chat, Leslie. Where can people connect and find out more about you?
Yep. So my website is www.lesliecarvitto.com. In terms of social media, I mostly hang out on Instagram. So that's at lesliecarvitto.photography. And you can find my email and all that kind of stuff on either Instagram or my website.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. Amazing quotes at the end there. And also this chat around, your challenges, what surprised you, and definitely your, for lack of a better word, journey so far as a working mum. So thank you so much for sharing. It's been really good, and I'm sure it will resonate with many others. And so, yeah, if you definitely want to connect with Leslie, check out her website and Instagram. And thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy more of this, hopefully, fingers crossed, amazing summer of Melbourne.
Yes. Thank you so much, Karina. And thank you for having a platform that brings women and mothers together to have a voice around everything that goes on in this journey. I just think it's really important for mothers to have a space where they feel like they can connect with other people and feel heard and feel seen because it can be a bit isolating. And yeah, so thank you so much for the work that you do.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you for listening to the Working Mama podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. Please also feel free to contact me on any of the Working Mama social channels. Remember, Mama is MUMMA. Via Instagram at workingmama_AU or website www.workingmama.com.au. I would appreciate you to share this podcast with friends and colleagues, especially those that are parents managing the juggle. And I would really appreciate if you had to take the time out to leave a review of the podcast. Thank you and see you next time. Have a great week.